I thought that being a refugee in Spain would give me and my family a chance at life, a real opportunity to thrive. After months of everything going wrong, I'm now sitting here, empty, after having to use my body to survive. All of my hopes and dreams of a better life are crushed. I grew up in the middle of the socioeconomic and political crisis of Venezuela, a time of starvation, escalating tensions, and disease. When I turned 19, my mother and I went to seek refuge in Spain. Then, if it worked out, more of my family could join us in the future. We had to request political asylum to get there, but that was pretty easy to do, given our circumstances. We'd never had much in life, but when asking for help, I suddenly felt something I hadn't felt before. I felt poor, unable to be someone. I felt like I was digging myself into a hole. A part of me wanted to be helped, and another part of me just wanted to die. I felt my whole world falling apart, but I had to do it for a brighter future, or so I thought. These feelings slowly started disappearing when we arrived in Spain, and for the first time in a long time, or maybe even ever, I felt protected. From the moment I stepped foot onto Spanish land, I noticed how beautiful everything was. The place, the people, the smells. There was food that I never could have even dreamed of eating, and all the medicine we needed. After just a few weeks, I finally started feeling healthier. I couldn't believe how my life had turned around so quickly. Soon, I was going to be able to start work. I was excited at the prospect of being able to finally get a real job and bring money in for my family. I remember this morning well, my first meeting with my social worker. Even though it was a house visit, I had dressed up for it to look smart and give a good impression. There was a knock at the door. I raced there and invited him in. I sat down at my table with him across from me, excited to hear some of the opportunities available. He then proceeds to say, "You should only think of working non-qualified jobs, and you won't be able to continue your studies because you are just an immigrant." I'm just an immigrant? It wasn't really what he had said, but more the way he had just said it. He made me feel like I was worthless. In this meeting, I was told to start working, I must do a medical and get my work permit to show my employers, so I did. I went to the doctor's where she checked me over and said I could have my medical certificate. I then mentioned to her that a medicine I had gotten on a previous visit for a cold hadn't cleared it up. Her face changed. Looking through her glasses and down her nose at me, she says, "If you do not like the public health system in Spain, you are free to return to your own country at any time." I was slowly starting to see a different side to the place we had just moved to, and how the people here perceived us immigrants. Nevertheless, I had to keep on living, so I got my work permit and started working minimum wage, kitchen and restaurant jobs to bring in just enough money to survive. Soon after, my mom was diagnosed with an illness preventing her from going to work. So I knew it was my job to take care of us both, just like she had tried so hard to do for me when I was growing up. It was a bit like having a single father's life at 20 years old. This was hard. I could barely even support myself, let alone me and my mom. Then, to top things off, the worst thing happened when I got my first paycheck. I began to open it, more excited than I had ever been. This was the first time I earned Spanish money, and I was finally going to be able to help my family. Then, as I slid the crisp notes out of the envelope and into my palm, I realized that my boss paid me less than half of the salary I was supposed to get. I was already getting minimum wage. How could she do this? I had to ask her. I remember feeling afraid. She was a tall, older lady who was very strict. It took so much courage for me to do this, and she just briefly looked at me and said, "Well, you're really just learning the job. You should stop thinking about money and be grateful you have an opportunity in a place like this," then walked away. I couldn't even pay for our rent and food with what she paid me. I was outraged and needed to do something about my situation. Things were supposed to be different here, and I was sure I would get something done. So, I went to see a lawyer to see what I should do, but he told me that there was nothing I could do to get this money, that I had to consider it as money lost. I walked away from the lawyer's office crying. I felt completely alone and desperate for help. How the heck would I pay for my mother's medicine? How would I pay for the rent or our food? After this, I made a radical decision that would change my life forever. Forever. I decided to use my body. I went in this direction because I always heard how easy it is to make money doing that. Before this decision, I had never even been close to anyone before. I was very innocent, and I was very afraid of experiencing any kind of intimacy. But I now saw this was our only hope. That first meeting will stay in my mind forever. I was terrified. During this time, I made sure to be clear to clients that there were certain acts that I didn't want to do, but they were really persistent and I needed the money. So in the end, I ended up doing things that I'm not proud of. Every time I had to close my eyes and pretend I wasn't there, so as not to cry. I was feeling empty. The only thing that kept me going was thinking about my family. I was doing all of this for them, and thankfully, they had no idea. In the end, I was left feeling like my life wasn't worth anything. And once again, sitting here feeling poor and unable to be someone, all of my hopes and dreams of a better life had been crushed. I started looking for another job, but this was just a vicious cycle of getting cheated and abused, and it was really taking a toll on my mental state. It was ironic because even though I had all the necessary papers, society's perception of me, the immigrant, made them treat me differently, just because I had a different start in life to them. Being so young, I still didn't really know how to or have the confidence to stand up and demand my rights. I started to believe all the remarks I would hear people say to me. Later on, I found out that the lawyer I visited over my pay was a friend of my former boss. This made me so angry, and I just couldn't take it anymore. I felt so let down by this country and the people around me that I had to tell someone. So I told my mother. When I sat with her, I wasn't sure how much I was going to tell her. But I ended up telling her everything. Because of this, she was not only physically sick, but also fell into a deep depression and started to distrust me. I didn't think things could have gotten any worse. Then, here we were. After seeing what this did to my mom, I knew I had to find a way out. Months later, I was able to find a part-time job at a cafeteria where my friend was working, and another part-time job at a restaurant of another friend's boyfriend. I didn't have any free time at all, but this would bring in enough cash for us to live and look at bringing my brother from Venezuela, who would thankfully be able to help me with our expenses. I had never worked so hard. It was really exhausting. I was always tired and I always left late, but I felt happy doing it. I had a purpose. After a while of working at the restaurant, my coworkers changed, saying that I didn't deserve to be working there, and that the only reason I had the job was because of my friend. I don't know what brought it on, but they started to dislike me and my company to the point I felt like a pack of wolves were attacking their prey. I even felt ashamed to be Latino after listening to them for so long. One of them would always give me a ride home after work. Then, out of the blue, he refused. I now had to walk 4 kilometers at 3 a.m. every night to return home, and that was just too much for me, so I had to quit. Thankfully, the cafeteria offered me full-time work there, so I would still be able to pay my bills. After some time with the money I made, I was finally able to fly my brother to Spain. He wasn't of much help at first, as he needed to sort out his papers, and that took a couple of months. But now he is working. It has taken a lot of the stress and pressure off me. Having a familiar face around helped me no end. I helped him get into work and warned him of some things to expect and ways to deal with them, and to find something that makes him happy outside of work. Just like I have recently rediscovered my love for writing, and would love to one day publish my story. I have cut back on my working hours. Now my brother is here to help us, and even my mom has gone back to work. We are a family again, and we have followed our dreams no matter how hard it has been along the way. Discrimination and racism have been daily battles for us, and something no one should have to endure just because someone starts off in life differently to someone else. Everyone deserves the same chances in the end. I now see I am not poor, and I can be whoever I want to be.